someone like Charlie Kirk, he was so large, he'll have maybe landlords that follow him.
Yes.
Okay,
right?
so that means that black people are charged at a higher rate than white people for a crime that they didn't even
Yeah,
commit,
but this,
right?
do you note on that?
Meaning that we still have systematic racism in policing, right?
Yeah, do you note though that when you're talking about
No, right.
They hate that term, systematic racism, which is a thing because in certain situations, as I said, crime is taking place, black people are criminalized because, and I will say this, I'll give the white boys a point here because black people act guilty as hell. Now we have body cams. There are a lot of channels on YouTube with these body cams. But one thing you'll notice is black people, even if they're innocent, in black Americans, FBAs, they don't act innocent. They act shady as hell. So I will grant them that where, sure, police are sketchy as hell and they do criminalize black folk. But once they're, perceived to be the criminal, once they're suspected of doing the crime, the black person acts guilty as hell. But anyway, she's saying that these people are overrepresented in police work, which is true. And that's a system. That's another point I made when I was debating someone in my chat about Charlie Kirk, a government endorsed influencer. When you make these broad statements about black women, about black men, 1450, look, these guys are running with it here in the chat. These guys will say up and down that they're not racist, but look how they behave in chats, right? So when he's saying about this 14% commits 50% of the crime and all these things that are not properly extrapolated and are not properly explained, these statistics, and he gets his audience that we know that the majority of Americans read at a grade 6 level, right? Which directly impacts their capability of interpreting news articles, statistics. Majority of Americans read at a 6th grade level. And hey, blacks, going back to your 14, if blacks are only 14% of the country and the majority of Americans are reading at a 6th grade level, do the math. That means many of those people are not black. Charlie Kirk would come into these debates and give these partial statistics. These guys, they know what they're doing. And that's why I said it was systematic, because these guys have law enforcement who follow them, right? These guys have someone like Charlie Kirk. He was so large, he'll have maybe landlords that follow him, right? Maybe has educators who follow him, teachers who teach black children. And they're hearing that black people are dumb, they're slow, they're criminal minded, they're this, they're that. So now the police officer, he just pulls out his AirPod. He just got done listening to the Charlie Kirk show, and he'd been hearing for the past 2.5 hours how criminal blacks are. So how do you think he's going to do his job now? And then the teacher who just took the AirPod out her ear and heard how dumb blacks are, how do you think she's gonna treat the black kids in the school? And then the landlord who hears how shady blacks are, how do you think he's gonna deal with his black tenants? So that is the definition of systematic. That is the systemic racism that people are referring to. But these guys, they're just like gaslight and say, oh, what, do you think there's a giant conspiracy against blacks? I don't know if they're too dumb to understand that that's how it works, or they are willingly trying to pretend like this is not a thing in order to push their agenda.